With Blue, Kieslowski wanted to explore the very interior nature of the heroine's mind and predicament.
Kieslowski was aware of death. He was aware of those he loved who had died. He was perhaps on some level aware of his own imminent death. So I believe that there is a kind of darker sensibility in which death is present that one feels in the film Blue.
The inspiration, or the idea behind the trilogy actually came from Pisevich, his writing partner, who had also, of course, had the idea for the Decalogue, a look at the Ten Commandments in the modern world. And I think Kieslowski just went along with it. He thought that was quite a nice idea, as long as it wasn't going to be about politics, because he was quite adamant that he didn't really want to make political films any longer.
And also, of course, it was a very exciting concept to do 3 movies in three countries which are connected and not connected, which let you tell more about, about the life that you can do in one limited feature film.
They just took those concepts of freedom and equality and fraternity and built stories and characters around them.
Vous pleurez? Parce que vous ne pleurez pas.
The word liberty does not have any political component in the film Blue. It's about the attempt of a young woman who has just lost her husband and daughter in a car accident to live essentially free, without memory, without work, without a past, with no connections. So he redefines the concept of liberty from what could have been a political sphere into an intensely personal, psychological, and emotional one. We have in Blue one of the darker portrayals of a broken female spirit. Darker because she hides her pain.
That was the film, not to talk and, speaking with silences, because she retreats from life and she wants to, and she's resisting, life somehow.
If you want to explore the theme of liberty on a very personal level in 1992 Europe, then obviously you have to have a character who is financially stable. Because the liberty that he is exploring is more emotional, psychological, philosophical than political or any other. So he is basically saying, if a woman like Julie has enough money to live on that she doesn't have to work for a living, is it possible for her to simply exist? Can she just get up in the morning, have her cup of coffee in her local cafe with some vanilla ice cream, listen to music, read, smoke? Is that enough? At moments it appears like it might be enough, especially because we see her swimming, always in a pool. She seems to expend a lot of physical energy in that swimming pool, kind of avoiding other kinds of things. So we get the sense of a woman who wants to live without connection to anything that could cause her pain. And by the end of the film, she and we realize it is not possible. She cannot help but open up to those in her immediate proximity. She cannot help even, but once she learns that her husband has a mistress, to reach out to that mistress and offer her the family home in which she was living before. And it's a very strange kind of motion picture. But we realize that things need to live. Human beings need to live. A music score that was written needs to be performed. There's somehow a responsibility to life continuing that goes against liberty, which Kieslowski embraces at the end.
He understood, that the metaphorical or symbolic function of the picture. One of the first drafts, Juliette Binoche is alone, he wrote that very often she went for jogging. And as a cinematographer, jogging seems to me not so attractive idea for the picture. And I come up to him with the idea, why not, instead of jogging, letting her go for the swim, because the water, the swimming pool, was much more interesting background for me in terms of metaphor. You know, you have a surface of water, you have a life and death.
There was one moment when I'm just about to get out of the water and then listen to the music. And for me, because water has to do with going back to first step, you know, babies and all that. So I said, and why don't I do? And I just did it. I did, you know, what's in the movie, which is to come back as a fetus. And he loved that, and we stayed with that idea. When I had to do a scene with my fist on the wall, they didn't have a protection. Kieslowski got very pissed off. And I said to him, oh, don't worry, you know, I'm going to do it. No, he went even more because he didn't want anybody to hurt himself or herself. I didn't mind in a way because for me, I was, you know, serving the film. I thought it would be a strong scene. So finally, we decided to do it. But I felt so protected by him, and it really stayed in my mind like something as a reference.
There is throughout Kieslowski's work a questioning of what makes a good person. Are we capable of altruism? Are we able to put ourselves in the place of another? I mean, these are very abstract questions, but in Bleu, Kieslowski makes it very concrete, because up until the last part of the film, Julie, as played by Juliette Binoche, with a great deal of retenue, of control and restraint, she's not necessarily somebody that we want to get close to. We don't get the feeling that she's all that generous. All we know is that she's good at shutting everybody off and living her own little life. But once she starts to reach out to others, once she gives, for example, the family home to the mistress of her husband, we realize that that was always there. However, her circumstances were such that she couldn't allow opening up to anyone.
I remember when we get to the apartment, and I remember I played it with more compassion as like something lovely to do, you know, to give the house where she lived to the lover of her husband. And Kieslowski wasn't, no, that's not that. No, she's not nice at all. It's a way to give a punch somehow, you know, that you have it. And there's a kind of hardness somehow. Being hard with life, you know, life's been hard to me. I'm going to be hard with life.
One of the things that Bleu is about is that unless you confront the loss, unless you go through the mourning process, all of that avoidance, all of that escape is just a flurry of activity that will result in a return of the repressed.
Tout cet argent ira à ce même compte.
Le 270641-196.
Oui.
Puis-je vous demander pourquoi?
Non.
Binoche's performance in Bleu is definitely her finest. It's a film which requires her to say very little and to express a very great deal. Kieslowski was right to choose Binoche because she can be quite a restrained actress anyway. Certainly between him and her, they came up with a performance that is quite extraordinary in its intensity, in exploring grief. And we know every second of the film what she's thinking and feeling, even though she has no words a lot of the time to tell us.
Kieslowski didn't want to go into emotions, you know. He wanted me to stay more inside, as if, you know, she's cut off from her emotions. So for me, that was the hardest part somehow, because my tendency would have been, you know, more to express more of the loss. With a lollipop, it's the silence of anger and pain. So her way to bite and to stay silent like that and not scream is a way to resist. And I think that the noise actually of the lollipop, it's more horrible than a scream in a way, because there's so much resistance. And he said, well, what I'm interested in is to film your intimacy. And it has so much resonance, that word, because it meant everything. He knew what he wanted so clearly. He would never go behind a little TV watching you. He was close to you because he was part of the scene somehow.
Because he said, my video is my cinematographer. I don't want to look to the video. I would like to stand next to the camera. It is his job to control the picture, what we are getting. And I watch only actors. At the opening where we had the highway sequence and the take of the girl who is running to the bush. And Krzysztof told me, listen, let her go out, don't pan her to the bush. Let her go out and without any reason, pan back to the car and to the father. Somehow I didn't like the idea because I did try to put everything so organic, so camera and the way how the camera works completely invisible. But finally, seeing, film edited already, I learned that, it was one of the most clever way of warning for audience. We used this technique several times later on, always in very important moments. It was always a kind of announcement, a kind of warning. Krzysztof told me that he would like to have here a very strong visual accent, like, for example, all of a sudden artificial, theatrical blue light, even using the strongest possible lamp. I couldn't get enough to get this, effect, and finally I decided to make something very risky and unusual. I wrapped the camera in the blue gel and I opened the back gate simultaneously with the music. So simply we overexpose blue negative from inside, which was very hard to control. And miraculously, the effect was incredibly good on the screen. Very often when I'm having a lecture with the students are telling, here's a computer, CGI, I'm saying, no, we didn't have money for it, and as a matter of fact, CGI then doesn't exist. I just make it on camera. I know from the very beginning it's not enough to think about the beautiful picture. It's important to think about the structure of the picture. I would say that a lot was determined by editing.
If one thing can be said about Kieslowski, it's that he loved playing with the film, changing things, tweaking things, making one scene stand out here, taking it out there.
He just told me once, editing for me is rediscovering the soul of the movie again.
An example of something that showed up during editing. There are these vignettes with the fading to black and then fading back in, and refading out and fading back in again at different moments.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Fading is usually used in cinema language and grammar to mark time, but not at all in this case. It's really clever, an original technique.
Qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire?
And these are things that showed up during editing. They were neither written nor premeditated. For instance, in the beginning of Bleu, after the accident, when Juliette wakes up in the hospital, you get the famous long shot into Juliette's eye. It's almost macro photography. You get close enough to the eye to see the doctor coming in the reflection, and the doctor tells Juliette,
Vous savez, votre mari a perdu la vie dans l'accident.
The shot lasts a very long time, and it's a very strange shot because it wants to be a subjective shot from Juliette's point of view, whereas in fact, we're outside of the eye.
The interpretation of the spectator is immense when you're so close, details, because it's so specific that it becomes universal somehow. I think the story could happen anywhere, at anybody.
It's because of the visual fluidity, and this is, I think, part of Kieslowski's cinematic trademark, a way of moving lyrically through space that connects individuals who might otherwise remain isolated. To me, if his camera keeps moving and embracing, therefore, first Antoine, the young boy who found the chain at the accident, and then the camera moves to accommodate Julie's mother, first through reflections, and then we see her. And then like a pendulum, the camera moves back to Lucille, her neighbor, Julie's neighbor who works in a sex club, given a beautiful close-up, a tremulous moment that suggests she's much more than a stripper. And then it moves left again to Sandrine, the mistress, and a sonogram of her baby on a monitor. And then finally ending in a close-up of an eye reflecting a naked back. Kieslowski seems to be, beyond aesthetical virtuosity, suggesting that now all of these characters are truly inside Julie, that she has taken them in. She's let them in and absorbed them into her own fiber. In other words, it's about connection and transcendence.
It's beyond language, time, age, religions, experiences. It's about life, and I studied 10 years afterwards, and it's a piece of art.